and welcome to Channel One News, your number one source for the latest and greatest going on. Today we'll be discussing World War I, and more specifically, the women in it. Often taken for granted, women have taken great measures to help war efforts in tough time during war. Let's focus the lens on senior correspondent Gabby Chang on a brief recap of World War I's forgotten heroes, the women.
World War I, or the War to End All Wars, was a bloody conflict that took place between 1914 and 1918. During this time, men were drafted to fight, and women had to take on jobs done previously entirely by men. They worked in heavy industry, in farmings, on railroads, in factories, etc. They joined the newly formed Women's Police Force and fought in the Navy and Air Force. At this time, women still could not vote and did not have many legal rights. This was all taboo at the time. While the men were away fighting, thousands of women took their jobs, and for the first time in forever, people paid attention to women suffragists and took what they asked for seriously. So, what do you know about women in World War I?
I'm not quite sure. I think they stayed home.
No idea. Did they even do anything back then?
What about the men? Did they do anything?
Easy. They risked their lives and fought for their beliefs in the war.
Men became soldiers and they fought.
Yes, there were many roles that they had to play. They fought in the terrible trenches and had to sacrifice so much.
Here to tell us all about her personal experiences and just how much women had an effect on the war, please help me give a warm welcome to Dorothy Lawrence. For those of you who aren't familiar with Dorothy Lawrence's story, she was born on October 4th, 1896 in the town of Haredale, London. She was an English reporter who became a soldier during the war by pretending to be a man.
Hello, Hannah. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Tell me, what was it like to make that decision to dress as a man and fight for your country? What pushed you to become a man, to dress as a man and become part of the Navy instead of joining the Women's Navy?
Well, I volunteered as a civilian employee of the Voluntary Aid Detachment, but was rejected. Deciding to enter the war was one of the hardest moments of my life, and I was arrested by the French police right on the battlefields before we fought.
In your book, you refer to the men that helped you smuggle a uniform, the khaki accomplices. What gave you the faith that these men, 10 in total, would help keep your secret and not tell the authorities?
At this time in history, British soldiers, just like any, had a strong sense of nationalism, and I think when we met in that Persian cafe, they just saw how serious I was about this. It was risky and dangerous for both sides, but they needed everything they had to smuggle me into a uniform. By the time they had gotten me into a uniform, I had proven to them my loyalty. And after they helped with the uniform, they taught me how to drill and march so that I wouldn't stand out of line against the other men.
How did you make your performance so believable?
Well, I flattened my figure with a homemade corset, and I used sacking and cotton wool to bulk out my shoulders. I persuaded 2 Scottish military policemen to cut my long, brown hair in a short military style, like the one I'm wearing now. I darkened my complexion with Condy's fluid. I razored the pale skin of my cheeks in the hopes of giving myself rash, and finally added a shoe-polished tan to my shoes.
Had you not gotten sick, would you have continued to pretend to be a man?
Yes, I would have continued with my act, but I realized that if I kept on fighting and my condition got worse, I'd be exposing myself and the others that had helped me. It just seemed too selfish, so I turned myself into the authorities. And if that meant that the men that helped me got to stay safe, I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Dorothy, and thank you for everything you have done to help prove that women are in fact heroes of World War I.